I played Resident Evil 4 a couple of years ago, and it very easily jumped into my list of some of my favourite games of all time. It's a game that just oozes charm at every turn. The action horror style gameplay is addictive with such measured progression, both in terms of you getting stronger as well as your enemies. The story was cheesy with serious undertones which seriously brought the characters to life. I was admittedly worried that the remake wasn't going to be able to live up to this game's godlike status, and honestly I wasn't overly impressed by the demo either. But oh my word, was I wrong. This remake was always going to go one of two ways. It was going to be like the phenomenal Resident Evil 2 remake, or it was going to be like the fairly disappointing Resident Evil 3 remake, and yet somehow, in my opinion, it's managed to eclipse both. We'll start off first with the story. Resident Evil 4 had a brilliant story due to how it refused to take itself too seriously. The most outrageous of things would occur in this game, and it would be presented in the most light-hearted way possible that it just worked. The remake does change this a little bit. The game is a lot more serious this time around, and I do feel it loses a bit of that cheesy charm. But it still works. The story is relatively unchanged for the most part. There's a few minor changes, but it's the same story we all love. The changes they have made, though, are good ones. Leon and Ashley's relationship develops in a much more realistic way than before. They share quite a few heartfelt moments together, and it is very clear that Leon actually cares about Ashley and isn't just fulfilling his mission. Lewis also got a bigger role this time around. I'm going to avoid spoilers, but he does play a bigger role and the story is a bit better as a result. One thing I wasn't too fond of is how the handful of villains were handled this time around. Some of my favourite moments from the original were Leon FaceTiming the villains and sharing quippy one-liners with each other. All of that is gone here. In fact, the main boss of the game, you barely interact with him at all for the rest of the game. I also wasn't a big fan of the minor changes made to Salazar either. The voice acting in the game is also very good. I don't really understand the controversy around Ada's new voice because she sounds mostly fine to me.
Sorry, nothing yet.
Although something definitely seemed off with Krauser. He sounded like an anime villain or something, I don't know, it just really took me out of the immersion during his fights.
You think they would want that? Revenge. You think I'm doing all this for revenge?
But overall, it's the same awesome story from before, told in a more serious and darker tone, and it doesn't sound ridiculous. But now, the gameplay. Oh man, this is just downright perfection. Everything is so damn fluid. You can switch weapons on the fly, and you will need to. Single enemy encounters can easily be handled with a couple headshots and a roundhouse, but once 2 or 3 swarm you at once, you'll need the shotgun. If you are being pelted by crossbows, you're gonna need the rifle. Within single combat arenas, you can be forced into so many different scenarios depending on where you run, how you position yourself, what weapons you've used already, what enemies you've killed, that all of it will just require different strategies from you, that combat constantly feels fresh. Another reason you need to switch things up is ammo economy. You don't want to end up with no ammo for one of your weapons, so you'll have to make sure each weapon's ammo capacity remains at a similar level so that you've always got at least a little bit of everything. The combat also has no opportunity to really become repetitive or stale, because the game is constantly throwing something new at you. Just as you begin to feel comfortable with the gameplay loop, they'll throw something else at you that you'll have to adapt to. Like, for example, in the early game, just as you get used to killing the Ganados by the end of Chapter 3, they introduce the Plaga Heads, where sometimes upon killing an enemy, they'll grow a very Resident Evil looking parasite out of their face that can tail whip you from distance and sometimes even insta-kill you. And please, don't get me started on the pure terror that comes with the regenerators, just as scary all these years later, if not more. The game does things like this the whole way through. The enemies are always evolving, and it creates a gradual skill curve that is immensely satisfying to overcome. And this game can be very difficult. I died 19 times across the 16 chapters in my first playthrough, including this rather embarrassing one. The game can be frustrating at times. There are a few areas where I was screaming, how are you supposed to do that? But the game usually does find the perfect balance between tension and adaptability. I just love this combat so much, and the attention to detail is insane. You can shoot dynamite out of enemies' hands, hell, you can shoot it out of the air, you can utilise the environment to your surroundings, and what makes this even more impressive is that you could actually do a lot of this in the original game, and that game is old. It really does show how groundbreaking this game truly was when it released. Then there's the boss fights, which are just stunning. They're all very similar to their original counterparts, but with better visual presentation and even more outrageous spectacle. They're all fantastic. Every remake of this magnitude is going to cut some stuff out, and this game obviously has. For the most part, and I cannot stress this enough, for the most part, this is a very faithful remake. There really isn't too much stuff missing. Though, rather notably for me at least, the terrifying It boss fight is absent. This upset me because it was, in my opinion, the scariest part of the original game, and I don't think it was close, and I think it would have scared the shit out of a whole new generation of players here, but sadly it didn't make the cut. Resident Evil 4 Remake is, in my opinion, the closest thing you can get to a perfect remake, which is pretty funny because I thought the same thing about the Resident Evil 2 remake, but this just eclipses it. This is one of the best games I have played in a very long time. I think that this is a better overall game than the original, which is always the aim with a remake. If you've never played either and want to know which one you should play this one. Personally, I think I'll always prefer the original because of its goofy charm, which is predictably lost here, but this remake is the better game. I just cannot believe how good it is. To be able to perfect the balance between action horror and survival horror this well due to pinpoint pacing is extraordinary. This is one of the best games out there right now and is, in my opinion, undoubtedly the perfect remake. Thank you for making it to the end of this video. I hope that you did enjoy it. If you did, then please make sure to leave a like, as it would be greatly appreciated by me. And if you want to see more content similar to this, then you could always consider subscribing, as you would be able to see more of them. But that's all from me. Have a nice day, and goodbye.